Welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified Doctor of Naturopathy, Dr. Stephen Cabral, shares with you exactly how you can reverse aging, take back your health, and live a life full of energy and passion, with new 20-minute episodes every single day to keep you healthy and engaged. Now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
We are back right now with our first Cabral HouseCall of the weekend. Thanks so much for joining the show. I'm Dr. Stephen Cabral, board certified Doctor of Naturopathy and founder of Equal Life, as well as the Integrative Health Practitioner Institute. On the weekends, if you're new to the show, I'd love to be able to answer our community's questions. We try to get to about a dozen questions each and every weekend, and it just looks like it's somewhere between 10 weeks or so, maybe 12 weeks maximum, before your question gets read live on the show. All things wellness, weight, anti-aging, longevity, coaching, whatever it might be, happy to help in any way that I can. And I always like to just share with you, can't provide any medical advice, medical treatment plans, medical cures, medical diagnosis, because that is not what we do in natural health. We believe, and we know to be the truth, that if you find the underlying root cause imbalance and you work to give the body exactly what it needs in terms of nutrients and help to remove those toxicities, well, a healthy body can't be sick. So that's what I try to do with these weekend editions of the shows. Love being able to see what the community is dealing with and do my best, do my part to try to help. Let's dive right into it. First question today is from Stacy. If you want to follow along, you can read Stacy's question as well as everyone else's at stephencabral.com/2850. All right. Let's see what Stacy says. Hi, Dr. Cabral. I hope you're having a blessed day. Thank you, Stacy. You as well. I have dysautonomia and POTS. I did the Big Five and other labs over a year and a half ago. I worked with a coach, did several protocols, etc. I've improved, but some of the sensory overload and anxiety is still there. It even stopped me from attending church and social events. I feel as though I have a seizure due to the overstimulation. I've exhausted all avenues besides selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors and my spinal issues from an ATV accident where I landed on my head and neck. I have lots of issues with it, but terrified to have my neck adjusted due to strokes that can occur. Do you think the dysautonomia could be from my cervical spine? I'm at a loss of what to do besides possible surgery or SSRIs, and I really don't want to do either, but I've been suffering so long. Stacy, totally understand where you're coming from. I get it. And so yes, dysautonomia is often caused by chronic stress, depletion of certain minerals such as potassium or magnesium, or an imbalance between sodium, potassium, and others. There's no doubt about that. However, you're right. It can actually be a cervical spine or atlas or other based issue. Atlas is basically just up near like the C1 vertebrae where the spine, right, your spinal column meets your cranium, your head. And so I do recommend actually working with a great practitioner, chiropractor, that looks at that, but at the same time, let them know about your apprehension about adjustments, because a great chiropractor can also do things that like active release technique. It's called ART. They can do Graston, which is like gua sha, where I learned back in Beijing, in old Beijing in China. So there's a lot you can do, and I absolutely do recommend looking at that. And they'll give you exercises as well to help strengthen any imbalances in, let's say, the SCM muscles, the upper trapezius muscles, the rhomboids, tight pecs, so they can help with that. And I do recommend looking into it. I really do. So that's my recommendation, as well as seeing a good therapist just to work on the overstress, because I'm sure you're stressed. This is a stressful situation. And anxiety, I can't give you any medical advice, but look into CBD oil. Look into a good organic CBD oil. The ones that we use in our practice are at equilibriumcbd.com. And the next thing I would do is look into a training program called Dynamic Neural Retraining Systems. I'll be doing a review in next year, so soon, coming soon, on 2 different programs that I like. But look up Dynamic Neural Retraining Systems, and I would look into that as well. There's online courses you can take. There's like 3 good ones out there. All right? Thank you, Stacy, and I wish you well. And I know you'll get there. I know you get there. I know that this is going to be the year coming up. There's no doubt about it. All right. Analyze is up next. ANNALIZE. I'm a healthy 47-year-old woman, 6 feet tall, 165 pounds. I've struggled with recurrent vaginal yeast infections since high school, trying various treatments. I work with a clinical nutritionist, adopting a paleo diet. My candida tests were negative, and the infections persisted. I completed the functional medicine detox and CBO protocol. My daily routine, fruit and vegetable blend, and daily nutritional support, along with a healthy diet and lifestyle choices. I've been married 23 years, no STDs, 3 children. I'm open to any recommendations or tests or to change my routine. As this is an ongoing issue, increasingly frustrated, your assistance is greatly appreciated. Totally get it, understand. And so there's 2. If the candida metabolic and vitamins test is clean, the gut is in good, healthy order, you're not bloated, you've got none of these issues, it can actually be vaginal, meaning that can be localized vaginally. And so what do we do in this case? Well, we typically use vaginal suppositories. So I've talked about this on previous podcasts, but I'm happy to give additional recommendations for yeast infection. Again, I'm not talking about cures or medical advice or bacterial vaginosis as well. So the women in our practice, not everything works for everyone. That's the truth, right? I learned this many, many years ago on my internships. So you could use a garlic bulb suppository, and you could try that for a few hours during the day. It will kill yeast. It will kill bacteria. You'd probably do that for 5 to 7 days. Any burning, any negative sensations, you'd remove it. You wouldn't do that again, right? But it can be very powerful. Some women use boric acid suppositories. They put boric acid, which is just a powder. It sounds like acid, but it's not, like battery acid. And you put it in a vegetable-based capsule, and you insert it vaginally as a suppository. And you would do that again for 3 to 5 days or 5 to 7 days. Or you could do something a little bit gentler, which would just be using coconut oil. So insert a little bit of coconut oil vaginally and around the entire vagina area. And so this is antimicrobial, it's antibacterial, it has lauric acid, it has caprylic acid that helps to kill yeast and bacteria. Then after about 5 to 7 days of doing that, if the actual feeling of the infection is gone, and again, because I'm just being careful medical speak wise, because again, we're not providing medical treatment plans, then what you would do is you would use, this works really well for most women, a lactobacillus acidophilus capsule and use that as a vaginal suppository. Now, what this does is it changes the pH of the vagina or the vaginal canal to a little bit more acidic. And when the vaginal pH is more acidic, it does not allow for that yeast to overgrow. And you would typically do that for about 5 to 7 days as well. So the whole protocol about 2 weeks. Okay. So hopefully that's helpful. And again, always happy to help. Feel free to write back in if you need more help. All right. Lindsay's up next. Hello, does stevia cause fertility problems? An influencer recently posted something along the lines of tribes that have used this as birth control. Yeah, I saw that as well. And I literally my head almost spun around in like a 360. Can you imagine the audacity? I don't know who the influencer was. I have no idea. That's the truth. I have no idea. But I saw people asking about this. Can you imagine posting that online and then some woman using this, like a packet of, let's say, stevia a day or whatever it might be, and thinking that that was going to be birth control, and then she gets pregnant? It is so irresponsible. Like it's unbelievable. It's irresponsible. It really is. Now, whoever the influencer was, I don't know who you're referring to because multiple people have done it because this is how things spread. I'm sure they didn't mean harm. I'm sure they were like, be careful of stevia. It causes infertility. It's just not true. Like it is just one of those myths that gets perpetuated. Like if women start lifting weights, they're going to get bulky and bulk up. It's like it's any of these things that just persist forever. So what I did, and the interesting thing, because I didn't see your comment before, but people have brought this to my attention. I said, like, how is this? How are people saying this? I did an episode on episode 2846, The Truth About Stevia. I talked about stevia and cancer, stevia and, well, my Boston accent's really coming out now. And infertility, stevia, and blood sugar spikes. So I went through it. I went through all the medical literature. There's over a dozen different studies. I tell you exactly where the myth came from. The study was done in 1968. I go through all the different things. And again, like I'm not like, I don't own stock in stevia. So it doesn't matter to me if you're using stevia or not. I use stevia because when I'm trying to cut down on the amount of sugar that I'm getting in my diet, I prefer to use a little bit of stevia. I'll use some monk fruit. I'll use a little bit of raw honey. I'll use a little bit of maple syrup. Like those Those are the only things that I use. And when I want a 0 calorie, I use stevia. And if I want another 0 calorie, I'll use some monk fruit. But that's it. I don't use any artificial sweeteners. Stevia is not an artificial sweetener. Stevia is actually an herb that comes from nature, from typically Paraguay, I believe, in South America is one of the main producers, and there's others as well. So I always say, be careful getting your health information from social media. It's dangerous. It really is. And again, you can look at what I'm talking about as well, meaning you don't have to believe everything 100%, and I'm totally good with that. But just know, and I've shared this all the time inside of high performance health and other places, you're not going to see me jump on any trends right away. I'm just not that individual. I will not jump to any conclusions. I will be slow to make recommendations for your safety as well as mine and my family. I have a lot of people that I care for, and I'm not going to make a hasty recommendation, nor am I going to say outrageous things without even doing research on it, right? So when I saw this, I said, maybe this person has a point. Maybe it causes infertility. I've never seen it. There's 40,000 studies on stevia just basically from around the world and studied for over 40 years in Japan as their sweetener of choice. But maybe I'm missing something. So I kept an open mind and went back and I'm oh, here's the research they're referring to. And it's it's not actual research. And the research doctor actually recanted their statement, but they don't go and look at those things. So anyway, you can see I got a little hot and bothered there, but it's only because so many people see that and then I'm never going to use stevia. Okay, well then what are you going to use? Are you going to use regular sugar? Fine, no problem. But what are you going to use? Aspartame? I get I don't know. I kind of sometimes lose my mind a little bit when I see these things online, but I'm going to take a deep breath and I'll move to the next question. All right, Alicia's up next. Hi, Dr. Rawl. I hope you are doing well and having a great day. I was having a great day. I'm just kidding. All right. 2 years ago, my blood work showed I had Hashimoto's and hypothyroidism. I listened to your podcast. I took your course about thyroid. I implemented now foods to my diet, did the heavy metal detox, made some changes, and have been doing all the things right. My TSH numbers went lower over time, then fell into the healthy range. But my last labs showed my TSH being very low. It went down to 0.3. Does this mean I went from hypothyroidism to hyperthyroidism? Also, my anti-TPO are very low now, but I still have anti-TG. What does that indicate now? Do I still have Hashimoto's or is it Graves'? Thanks in advance for clarifying that for me. You are always a big help. Well, I'm so excited that you got results on do it yourself, right? You took my thyroid course, you implemented the protocols, you got the results you wanted. So that's what it's all about. It's all about teaching and paying it forward. So that's amazing. So we do want you between 0.5 and 2. So again, keep in mind that any given day, you could be a little higher or a little bit lower, but you want it within range. And so yes, it's a little bit now lower at 0.3. So what does this mean? It just means that let's say you're using the thyroid glandular that we recommend or the daily thyroid support or whatever you're doing. All we need to do now is start to back off that supplementation. That's the great thing. So you get individualized results when you run these labs. Excuse me. So my recommendation is if you're taking 2 of the thyroid glandular a day, we go to 1. If you're taking 4 of the daily thyroid support, 2 at breakfast, 2 at dinner, we go to 1 at breakfast and 1 at dinner. And then after 10 to 12 weeks, we run your labs again and we see how's that doing? And it should be pretty great. Now also keep in mind with your TPO antibodies, which are now very low, fantastic sign. It may still take a little bit of time for your thyroglobulin and other antibodies to begin to decline as well. So just do keep that in mind. Seems like you're doing phenomenal. So keep on keeping on and congratulations. Phenomenal. Okay, Connie's up next. One more question from Connie. Connie says, hi, Dr. Rawl. Thank you so much for all the wonderful work you're doing. Thank you, Connie. You truly changed my life with all the great information. I have a question about waking up hungry at 4 a.m. I think it might be low blood sugar because I do circadian fasting and my last meal is around 3 or 4 p.m. Is there anything I can take before bed to stabilize my blood sugar without breaking my fast? Thanks so much, Connie. Okay, great question. Great question. Okay, so, I love the circadian fasting, phenomenal. And it's hard for most people to stop at 4 p.m. or so, but your sleep is probably fantastic, Connie. Now, waking up at 4 a.m., yeah, that's an issue. Hungry. There's no doubt about it. So there's a couple things we can do. So one, I have a whole podcast on what foods break a fast, and I would definitely recommend checking that out. Anything that's going to stabilize the blood sugar, let's say that it's protein, let's say that it's certain fats, all of those are going to break your fast. That's the problem. They really are. So people say, well, you could take branched chain amino acids or other amino acids. No, they still break your fast. Just because it's 0 calorie doesn't mean it's going to break your fast. So it's important to look at that. What I would look at is this. I would actually trend more towards how can we drop those cortisol levels maybe a little bit before bed. So this is just a test because you're going to test multiple variables. Look at using the sleep help support protocol, magnesium, adrenal soothe, and liquid melatonin, or use the sleep help support, which has the melatonin and other factors in there with the adrenal soothe and with the calming magnesium. Those an hour or so before bed can very much help keep your cortisol levels lower. So maybe, just maybe, you're burning through less glucose overnight. The other recommendation is to actually wear a continuous glucose monitor. You can find my recommendations at stevencabral.com/resources and find if your glucose levels are truly the culprit, if they are dropping at that time, then you'll better be able to see what is working. All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning into the show. I thank you. I appreciate you. I'll be back tomorrow answering more of our community's questions. I want to sincerely thank you for your support of this podcast. I couldn't do it without you, and I mean that. I truly do. I also want to make sure you knew that we now have multiple ways for you to find your answers to the most difficult health, wellness, weight loss, and anti-aging questions. You can find podcast-specific topics like thyroid, adrenal, hormones, sleep, digestion, Ayurveda, and many more at stevencabral.com/podcasts that will then link you to your favorite Apple, Spotify, and other podcast players. Plus, all new podcasts and weekly exclusive video content is being added to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Stephen Cabral. And that's Stephen with a PH. Head on over and subscribe so that you don't miss any of the exclusive content. Lastly, if you've ever found any of my podcasts or books to be helpful, I would really appreciate it if you could leave a review on iTunes or your favorite media player for the podcast. Rating and subscribing to the YouTube and podcast allow me to reach more and more people and help spread my mission of healing throughout the world. Thank you again for being a part of this movement.